Hi, I'm Ginty from Sonic Academy. When I'm not doing all things Sonic, I produce music and DJ under the name Funkasaurus. And every other Friday night, I do a live internet-based radio show through iBreaks Radio, one of the labels that we put out a lot of our tracks with. So what I'm going to do over these next few minutes is just talk you through the various different bits of gear that I use to actually allow me to get the music from this room in my house out onto the internet so that thousands of people around the world can listen to it every other week. Okay, I'll start off by just talking through the different bits of hardware that I use first. The back here you can see we've got a home computer, an iMac, and I use this to store the Nicecast software that I use to connect to the iBreaks server to send the information from my laptop out onto the internet. I also obviously use my laptop because when I'm DJing doing the radio show, I don't use traditional decks and a mixer. I use Ableton on a laptop and a MIDI controller for a number of reasons. I really like Ableton. I'm a big fan of it as a production tool and as a DJ tool. But I find that it gives you more flexibility as far as what you can actually do with the music, but it also means that you don't have to go through the trouble of setting up turntables and stuff every other week and trying to find the space within this pokey room to do that every other Friday night. So I use two computers, one to send the signal and host the broadcast Nicecast software, and the other one, my laptop, to store Ableton and all my MP3s and stuff like that. Okay, I also use two different sound cards, and I'll explain why I do that. First up, I've got this, which is an M Audio Fast Track Pro, which I use to connect to my laptop to run my Ableton session through. I use this because it has two stereo outputs on it, and that's, I think, pretty much essential if you're doing any kind of live work or DJing or anything like that with Ableton, because what that means is that you can send one stereo signal to the PA or the speakers. Also means you can then monitor using headphones what you're doing, with your tracks before you actually send them to the mix, the same way as you would if you had a standard DJing setup, turntables and a mixer. This gives you that option to be able to cue what you're doing. And this just connects very simply via USB into the side of my laptop. And you can pick these up for about 110, 120 quid or something like that. They're really not that expensive, but they do the job perfectly well. The other sound card that I use is this bit of old school gear, which I've had for nearly a decade now, and it's still going strong. This is a DigiDesign M box, and the reason that I use this is to get the stereo signal from my Ableton session into my sound card, then into my other computer, into my iMac. So I connect this again just very simply using USB into the back of my iMac computer, and then send the signal from my Ableton to that particular sound card, so Nicecast, the broadcast software, can pick up that signal. This isn't particularly useful if you were doing live work or anything like that, because it only has one stereo output on it, but it is really handy for simple home recording, things like that. You can, I think this version, you might be able to get a second-hand version on eBay or something like that, but they do have new M boxes and mini M boxes and stuff like that. Vast range of kind of small home recording sound cards that DigiDesign have now. So I use this as well as my M Audio Fast Track Pro. Okay, the next bit of gear that I use for my radio show, and something that is quite important, is this small mixer. Now, this is a Tapco Mix 60. And again, not the most expensive bit of gear in the world. I primarily just use it for this radio show. It just has a few channels on it. It's got a couple of basic XLR and jack inputs, so it would be useful, if you're using it in combination with a basic sound card or something like that for home recording, if you're recording vocals or instruments or anything like that. It could be very, very handy. The reason that I use it for this particular show is if I'm sending out the mix from my sound card, from my M Audio sound card, I need to send that into my Tapco mixer, and then the signal goes from my sound card, or from Ableton originally, into my M Audio sound card, then into my mixer, just simply using the basic phono to phono cable, but I've just got a couple of 1/4-inch adapters on the end of my phono cable, and that just comes out of the phono stereo output on the back of the sound card and into the 2 main inputs on my little Tapcode desk, like so. This means that I can then take another output from this particular desk. You have a couple of different stereo outputs on it. You'll have a main output and you'll also have a control room output, both which will send exactly the same signal. So I take then the main output, which is here, to go to my 2 monitor speakers within the room here, and I also then take the control room output into the back of the DigiDesign M-Box sound card that I'm sending to Nicecast. Now, the reason that I do this is that I also use one of these within my show, which is obviously a microphone, bog standard microphone again. It's a Shure SM58. You can pick these up about 60, 70 quid or something like that. A real standard kind of recording microphone and live use microphone. But I use this just so I can talk during the radio show, introduce the tracks, stuff like that. And there's some kind of human element into what I'm doing. It's not just a nameless bloke playing tunes for a couple of hours. You can actually chat a wee bit, get some interaction going within the show. So what I need to be able to do is to be able to speak into this microphone and not be getting any kind of delay or feedback or anything like that from the speakers that I have set up. So using this small Tapcode desk, that allows me to turn down the main volume, which is going to turn down the volume to the speakers, but it isn't going to interrupt the signal that's going to my DigiDesign sound card and ending up at Nicecast and going out into the world via the internet. So it means obviously then I can have total control over the sound that's going out to the internet and the sound that's coming out of my speakers. They're 2 separate things, which is then really handy. My microphone then is just very simple. The way that I do this is I just plug it in using a bog standard XLR to XLR cable, and just plug that into one of the channels on the front of my little M audio mixer just here. And then within my Ableton session, I set up a couple of tracks that I want to DJ with, but I also set up a vocal mix track. So you've got one track in there that the vocal is just going to, that the microphone signal is going to. So I'm not having to send that to the desk or anything like that, because ultimately all the sound, including the tracks that I'm mixing through Ableton, and the sound is coming through the microphone, I want to then be sending all of that to my DigiDesign sound card, so it will go to Nicecast and up to the iBreaks server. So we want to keep that all contained then within Ableton, and then send that whole signal to my desk, then take an output to the speakers and an output to the internet. So I've got total control over all those elements within the track. And Nicecast, as I mentioned before, it's just a very simple piece of software that you just have to punch in, the destination of where that's going to the iBreaks server, and then just hit start. As soon as I'm ready to go, we get a countdown in the private chat room on the iBreaks website from the previous DJ. Just counts down to 10, and as soon as he counts down to 1, he hits stop broadcast on his Nicecast. I hit start broadcast on mine, and as soon as it comes up, go green on the Nicecast, then we are broadcasting live to the world. And that's pretty much all I do.